More than 20 guest hosts from the year join to ring in the new year. Look back at some of the top stories from the year, predict what's to come in 2021, share picks for the ChannelPro Book Club, and more. It's a ChannelPro Weekly Spectacular, the 2021 New Year's Special. Hello and welcome to a special edition of the ChannelPro Weekly Podcast. This is going to be a fun, wild ride as we recap the year that was 2020 and look forward out into the future and talk about some predictions for 2021. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine show. For the folks out there like you who are the MSPs, the VARs, the integrators, the MSSPs, the those who work with other businesses and technology as your primary form of career, we welcome you one and all. Joining me in this special episode is the one who's, well, here every other episode anyway, executive editor Rich Freeman. Welcome, Rich.
Happy New Year to you, Matt. Happy New Year to everybody on our audience.
Yeah, happy 2021 to you. Glad you're here. This is actually going to be kind of a bananas show because as many of our listeners and viewers know, we like often have guest hosts and interviews, but we have more than one guest host today. Rich, how many guest hosts do we have?
You know what? If my math is correct, we have 22 guest hosts on this episode.
We folks, we went absolutely crazy coming up with this, but yeah, we are going to be joined over the next 4 segments. So we are going to have it split up. We're going to be joined by a lot of former guest hosts who have been on the show throughout the year of 2020, which I believe was how they were selected, right? Like we invited everybody back. Was that how that worked?
That's exactly right. I went out to everybody who guest hosted with us and said, we're holding the world's biggest Zoom party and you're all invited. And 22 of them could make it. And we, as you said, we split them up across 4 segments and we'll be talking about different things in each segment.
Yeah, exciting stuff. And it's great that so many of our guest hosts who've been on really wanted to come back. Like the response was great for coming on to the show. So excited about that. So Rich, talk to you for a couple minutes as we talk, and we'll dive into the segments here in just a few minutes. But you know, I want to ask you, looking back in 2020, are you glad it's over?
I absolutely am, and you know, there were times when I never actually did this, but I was actually thinking about going online and using one of those countdown tools that will show you, how many days to some, because yeah, just could this year could not have ended too soon. For me, I think for a lot of folks, what a unbelievable, and we didn't actually do a holiday special kind of show a year ago, but if we had, and we had asked people to make predictions for the year 2020, what a useless bunch of predictions we would have gotten.
That's so true. They would have been all wrong, all very, very, very wrong. So. I'm certainly glad that it's over, but Rich, I know we're going to talk probably about a lot of doom and gloom, and I'm glad it's over. There was some good stuff that happened in 2020, right? The lockdown wasn't particularly great, and not being able to do things in person again, but it was a banner year for ChannelPro Weekly. I'm gonna, we don't talk about the podcast very much, but our audience has significantly grown over the course of 2020, and I know we're really excited about that. ChannelPro has survived, done well, and delivered great content. Rich, say something positive about 2020 before we completely start trashing it.
Absolutely, and it's actually not all that hard. So I mean, it was a difficult year, obviously for everyone economically and so on, and that applies to a lot of people in the channel as well. But one of the great things about 2020 to watch, and for me and you, we were watching from the cheap seats, as they say, but watching the solution providers and the MSPs out there cope with something completely unexpected and step in and keep their clients up and running and keep the economy moving. I mean, the heroism, there really isn't any other word, to use, that was exhibited by ChannelPro readers last year, because it had to be, and they were there for their customers and they kept things going. That's a great story from last year, and that's a positive thing to reflect on.
And it's a good thing for the channel to think about too, is the channel as a whole really stepped up and showed not only that they can be reactive quickly, but how important they are just in general is to keep businesses operating. And without the channel, behind all of these businesses, helping them get like workforces going working remotely and adapting technology to fit a very rapid need to do things for a lot of businesses very, very differently than what they normally did. I, the economic disaster that could have been without the channel didn't happen because the channel was there, and obviously we've seen some economic downturn, of course, but can you imagine what it would have been like without the channel behind these businesses, helping them adapt quickly?
Extremely essential workers, is what we're talking about. And if there was any question about that before, it was erased last year, that to be an IT provider, that is essential work.
Absolutely. So as we go forward here, we've got 4 different segments that we've kind of split the show into. Rich, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what listeners are going to be hearing in the episode here to follow?
So in segment 1, you're going to hear some of our co-hosts from 2020 talk about the biggest storylines, the biggest issues and developments in 2020. In segment 2, we will talk about 2021 and hear some predictions for what's coming up. We will also make everybody share one weird, vivid, compelling memory from 2020. We've all got those. In segment 3, we will be joined by our colleague Colleen Fry, ChannelPro's managing editor, and also the leader of the ChannelPro Book Club, and we will be getting some book recommendations from some of last year's co-hosts. And then in segment 4, and I know you are looking forward to this, we're going to have some more co-hosts come on and do an extended museum pick session where a bunch of folks are going to each bring in their museum pick. And you'll have one of your own, and we will just dive into a whole series of museum picks.
Yeah, what a great way to end the year 2020 and begin a new one here on this New Year's Day. So very excited to put together this special edition episode for you all. So without further ado, why don't we take a short break and go ahead and dive into segment 1. What do you say, Rich?
Let's do it.
All right, stick around. We'll be right back. All right, and for our first segment, we've got a star-studded list of previous co-hosts online and ready to join us to do what? Well, we're going to dedicate this segment to talking about some of the top stories of this year that was 2020. Let's go ahead and go around the room and see who is here. First up, just going no particular order here, just I'm reading down my list. First up is Mr. Chad Kemp. Chad, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Chad Kemp from Fast Computers, managed service provider in Canada. I'm rocking the Canadian Dado jersey here. Happy to be here and hoping this year is going to be more fun than the last one.
I agree, and I see that jersey, and I'm already like salivating for hockey to start again, seeing you in that jersey. So it cannot get here any sooner. Also joining us is the man who's been on several times with us throughout the last few years. Always excited to have him on, Mr. Eric Long. Eric, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, here I am, sunny Florida. Nice day out, and I'm skipping golf for this. So just want to make sure you all know that.
Wow, and what a testament that is that Eric is actually skipping golf to join us here on the special edition of ChannelPro Weekly. That means Rich must have bribed him or threatened him in some way. But Eric, you're not in the RV today, so you're in a house today?
I am in a house. We're back on the farm, so back in Florida, and the RV's outside though. So
as long as it's nearby, ready to escape, that's all that matters. Next up is the man who needs no introduction. So we're just going to skip him anyway. So let's just move on. No, I'm kidding. Our next guest is host of the 5-minute roundup podcast with Rich Freeman. Longtime guest, great supporter of ours. We love having him on. He does tons of our digital events. He's just awesome. Eric Simpson, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everybody, Happy New Year. And Eric Simpson from ericsimpson.com. I built and sold an MSP practice in another lifetime, and I work today to help other MSP business owners improve their business practices. So thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to have this conversation with such an esteemed group of industry thought leaders and experts. This is going to be fun.
That is the goal. I hope it is a lot of fun. And Eric, thank you so much for being on. And for those who are looking for something awesome to watch, I'm going to just say this: go find our on-demand version of the 2020 December Managed Services and Cloud Services Summit. Is that what it was, Rich? That we just did?
It was indeed.
Yeah, go find the on-demand version of that. We had a session in there where it was called the Masked MSP, where we had some MSP guests on, and they were kind of in costume and disguise, and we had to kind of hear their answers and vote them off just to unmask them and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun, but Eric came dressed as the Mandalorian and just knocked it out of the park. It was awesome. It is the way. Eric?
Yeah, let's see what happens to me in season 3. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we were commenting before we started that Eric did this awesome thing where he had video of the Razor Crest and Baby Yoda behind him, and of course, 2 days later, they blow up the Razor Crest. So, spoiler alert, by the way, for anybody who's listening. But awesome stuff. Next up, joining us is another man who's been on with us several times. A great guy, Rory Sanchez. Rory, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, a little bit about me. Well, I'm Rory Sanchez. That about covers it. I'm CEO of True Digital Security. And what do? We try to bring instant maturity to IT security compliance programs at our clients. I'm happy to be here on this new year where I'm hoping no one will use the C word. And it's great to see so many friendly faces here. I think everybody on here I've had the pleasure of meeting personally in the past, except for maybe Chad, and that might have something to do with Border Patrol just not letting me up there. But awesome to be here. Thanks for the invite. Great to see everybody.
And Rory, that C word is catsup, right? Nobody uses that word.
Nobody uses catsup anymore.
Yeah, that
Really?
we cannot use that word. If we hear it, if anybody says it, they're instantly booted off. That's what I'm going to say. Also joining us is the man of the hour from Land Infotech, Mr. Michael Goldstein. Michael, tell us about you.
Hey, Happy New Year to everyone. I'm happy to be here. And Michael, we are Land Infotech here in sunny Fort Lauderdale, managed service provider, a Microsoft partner, and definitely hurting for hockey also, Chad. Yes, Florida does have a hockey team that's in place there. So we're looking forward to a great new year.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming back and joining us on this special episode. I do believe we have done the rounds. Rich, did I miss anybody?
You missed Mike Summel.
I did. Oh, and you know what's funny? I did because he moved up my list here. That's why I missed him. Also, last but not least, but we are maybe saving the best for last. No offense, guys, but Mike Summel is awesome. Mike Summel, author of this book right here, How to Avoid HIPAA Headaches and many more. Mike, tell us about you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Rich. And Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year to my friends who are on this panel. And I'm not doing what Eric Long is doing, skipping golf. I'm skipping snow shoveling to be here today. And it's great to see everybody. I have Summel Consulting, where we consult with clients that have cybersecurity and compliance needs. And I also have Summel Systems, which are training systems for MSPs related to cybersecurity, compliance, and business continuity planning.
Awesome. And welcome back. Glad that you were able to join us today. And anytime we can get you out of shoveling snow, just let us know. We're here for you, dude. Totally. Rich, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Why don't you kick us off with how we're going to approach this 2020 top news stories segment.
Well, I want to leave this as open as possible for our guests to chime in with what they think is the big or the biggest storylines of 2020 in the industry and in the channel. But maybe I'll sort of kick things off with a really obvious one, and there are a bunch of really obvious ones. But what phenomenon was bigger in 2020 and less expected when we went into the year than the whole work from home computing phenomenon, and all of the turmoil that created in the channel, getting people ready for that, and now all the adjustments that people have been making over the course of the year and going to continue to make to enable this going forward. So I will toss it to you randomly. I'll toss it to you, Michael Goldstein, to sort of chime in on the the meaning of that storyline for your company. But then I'll also say and say this to all our co-hosts: feel free to switch to another topic that you think is bigger, also just as important from last year.
Well, I can't say that. I can't think that that's not the biggest topic for all of us that are out there. I mean, listen, devastating to many, but then you look how hopefully we can all come out of this turmoil. I mean, mentioning names like Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, you look at how that's changed our life. I think earlier Rory and I were joking about meeting at events and going to different events. I mean, I think that, working from home, sitting out there, I know the name of my Amazon delivery man. The FedEx guy knocks on my door just to say hello when he's passing by. I mean, it really was, a crazy kind of year. Our clients panicked in the beginning. Many of us kind of showed up and helped them through it. And, you just look in the vendor tech community, how many vendors stood up and, looked to help all of us through this. So, just look at what the Zoom stock was on January 1st last year compared to where it might have been in the peak of the summer. So interesting piece, and definitely happy the year's over. Hopefully we all have some hope, and we're able to make this a great year and continue helping out the community.
Chad, over to you. Thoughts on work from home, or is there something, another storyline from 2020 that you want to talk about too?
Well, yeah, there's two things I want to touch on here. With the work from home, if you look at major events in history in the past, the World Wars and things like that, they were very, very tragic times, but they were also times of extreme acceleration of research and development. And I think that 2020 marks, the great experiment of not just work from home, but school from home and virtual platforms in general. Like it or hate it, I think it moved us forward 10 years from what we would have taken to just naturally progress there. And for that, I think that's going to be a big thing in the future in changing things. And on that note, though, the challenge was cybersecurity. I guess what would it be now? A couple of weeks ago, the SolarWinds thing. It wasn't our MSP tools, but in general, and the FireEye. Just going back through the year, it seems like the attacks are accelerating, and work from home obviously introduces challenges around that. And I think that for 2021 here, we're going to have our work cut out for us.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great segue. So I'll go to Rory and then Mike Summel, our sort of security guys here, because there are two ways you can take that, Rory. And one is you can kind of talk about another huge storyline from 2020, which is management platforms and MSPs themselves being under attack as opposed to their clients, or the whole work from home security angle, which has been an enormous headache for people as well.
Yeah, well, I think a great takeaway from from the attacks that we saw surrounding SolarWinds and FireEye here in the last part of 2020 was that I think a lot of folks are coming with the realization that we can't depend on a few giant players to be to be the key players, but there's room for everybody in the MSP and the MSSP market to step up and let your clients rely on you, because we can't, government is figuring this out, everybody's figuring it out, that you can't rely on a couple of giant companies, because the bigger you are, the bigger that target is that's painted on you. And then the bigger the repercussions when something like that takes place. On the work from home initiative, it's something that Chad said was brilliant. And that is that in times when something really unexpected happens, it's really when innovations happen and things get accelerated. There's been a lot of conversation that had this happened 10 years ago, we could not have had this booming work from home. The technology wasn't there, the bandwidth wasn't there. And then the question is, oh, really? Had it happened 10 years ago, would technology have quickly stepped up? Could we have pulled it off 10 years ago? And, you know, and then the follow-up to that is what's going to happen. Throughout most of 2020, we were hearing from clients going, you know what? Work from home is here to stay. We're not going back. And then in the last, I would say 30, 45 days, we've been hearing from our clients, we can't wait to get back. You know, there's renewed hope. You know, now the new year is here, and I think we're seeing a lot of people where once we thought it was going to be like a 70-30, 70% never going back to the office. Now we're wondering what that shift is going to be, because more and more people are looking forward to getting back to the original normal.
Well, you know, I'm going to make a point there. It's also prudent to note that as we go kind of back into whatever the new normal is a lot more complex for businesses, because you're going to be supporting not only in-office personnel, but your remote workforces simultaneously, probably all the time going forward.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, you know, the complexity of the hybrid workforce, and, you know, and that increased attack surface and the increased compliance surface, that's going to be hard to reel back in.
Yeah.
And compliance is the perfect bridge to Mike Summel. That is your bread and butter, sir, from a compliance standpoint. You know, what stands out to you about...
Speaking of golf, I teed it up for him, right?
Yeah.
In the snow.
And speaking of golf too, see, Rich, you didn't tell me the memo that we were talking about in industry news stories, because I found what I thought was a really important news story was that a Florida man retrieved a golf ball that landed on an alligator's tail. That actually just happened this month, and I actually thought for a moment that might have been Eric Long who did that.
We've always played through alligators, so that's nothing new down here.
Nothing new. Mike, over to you for the kind of the compliance angle, and tell us what kind of stuck out to you in 2020.
Well, it's not just a compliance angle, it's the whole shift. And again, there will be a lot of permanent changes here. I was on the phone with a client of ours, the CEO of a social services agency, and we were talking about his phone system. And he's saying, you know, we don't need phones anymore. Everybody, just like we are right now, using their computers to communicate and having phone business phone numbers forwarded to mobile devices and things like that. So I think we're going to see a big shift in the way that technology happens. We've already seen a lot of, you know, on-premise devices move to the cloud, but there will be some permanent shifts, and some of it isn't going back. You know, there's been a huge shift here. Somebody told me that the two most popular phrases in 2020 were "wear a mask" and "you're on mute." So, you know, it's just interesting even how the lexicon has changed. But I think that, you know, the whole SolarWinds thing is indicative of a trust factor that is affecting MSPs. And I think MSPs, and I was an MSP for many years before I just focused entirely on consulting. The challenge with MSPs has always been building trust. You know, you need to trust me with your network, with your data, with your business, essentially with your life and your retirement and your hopes and dreams. And we're now seeing some chips in that armor. And some of it is because there was a lawsuit earlier this year against an MSP for not delivering on services. But MSPs from the beginning, when we became an MSP, we were kind of told to tell everybody, we'll handle your IT so you can focus on your business. And that wording came back to challenge the MSP. Now that you have organizations kind of higher up in the food chain that are providing the tools to MSPs being attacked, it really shows the size of the adversary, and that this is organized crime. And, you know, to Rory's point, not relying just on a single organization or big organizations, but at some point you have to, because there are going to be big organizations that provide you with products and services, but also you have regulations, you have data that is really worth more than gold, and people haven't always respected it that way. So when it comes to this, I think MSPs in the new year are going to have a challenge to overcome to prove why businesses should trust you and the tools that you're using with their most critical data.
Eric, I want to go over to you because, we're talking about security and compliance, and that's been a huge factor in the whole work from home phenomenon. But obviously, the other huge aspect of that, which we've touched on a number of times already, is just the explosion and acceleration of cloud adoption. A lot of stuff that we knew was going to happen as the world moves into the cloud happened a lot faster and bigger and more abruptly this year because it kind of had to. So, I mean, as somebody who is all in, I mean, that is what TerraCloud, your company, does. Just talk a little bit about, what work from home and what 2020 meant for the cloud market.
A huge increase in alcohol sales, that's for sure. Back to Mike's point, I don't think our clients have, we actually, I guess ours do because we have that conversation with them, but I don't think that most MSPs clients even understand the risk and the exposure that they have via their service providers. And I don't even know that we understand the risk and the exposure we have with our service providers. When we have our clients sign off on, terms of service for every one of the vendors that we happen to be doing business with in our master services agreement. But yeah, I'm scared, terrified of getting sued and, having to deal with those types of things on top of all the other crap that we have to deal with on a daily basis. But back to the remote workers, we were kind of already on that bandwagon. We had started early with WVD when it was available, and we were doing Citrix and all that kind of stuff. So we had an all-in cloud mentality to begin with, even though we still manage a lot of on-premise infrastructure. So nothing's really changed other than maybe the business environment more than anything. I mean, we've noticed, obviously people being very cautious in regards to how they're approaching growth. Where the workers are going to be. We are doing some advanced planning for future further lockdowns if they were to take place. So I don't remember what you asked me, Rich, but it was a wacky year. So we're happy to be into 2021. I hope, unless it's got something really unique in store for us.
I guess all that you, right? Now you can't remember what people ask you.
That sums up the year quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's the same guy that talked about alcohol sales increase. So.
That's right, and interrupting his golf game. It's all making sense.
Something that I thought was super interesting, like in the MSP circles, was that I think for years MSPs were telling all their clients, we can do upwards of 90% of what we do for you 100% remote. And I always heard from folks saying, you know what, my clients still want to see the guy show up. They still want to see my guy there. And you know what, we're continuing to charge for it. We charge accordingly because they want to see somebody show up at their place. And then suddenly there was a time in 2020 where no one wanted to see anyone. No one come to my facility, no one show up. And I think that really did a lot for cloud adoption and remote endpoint management and embracing some of the stuff that's coming down the road in the Microsoft 365 methodology and sort of replacement of the old Active Directory style of doing things with the new Microsoft 365 adoption. And I think that's going to be big news this year going forward as one of the things that we learned last year. Sorry to interrupt, and sorry to harass Eric about alcohol consumption. It's just, he hasn't bought me a drink in a while, so
The door's always open, Roy.
I gotta find out where in Florida you are.
Yeah,
Undisclosed location.
I will catch you offline on that one. Mike knows where I'm at.
The other interesting thing that you look at it is that when you look at technology, I mean, we sent 2 manned space flights out. We haven't done that in God knows how long. You look at that, and I'm in an area of Florida, and I went out Sunday night and actually got to see a rocket ship take off, from South Florida and Orlando. So look at what we've also accomplished on that.
That's true. It hasn't been all bad, hasn't it? There has been some pretty interesting things that have happened this year. And I bet Eric Simpson has something that he would want to talk about. Don't you, Eric?
I'm listening to the conversation, and, I picked out a couple things. And, one of the things that struck me was somebody mentioning, we're redirecting office lines to our technicians' cell phones, which was the exact complete opposite of what we were trying to move away from back in the day. It's like, do not call the technicians directly. Do not give them your cell phone number. So it's interesting how, necessity is the mother of, invention, but also of like wiping the slate and going, no, we're actually going to do what we said was a no-no before. And on that necessity, being the mother of invention topic that we've been talking about here, one topic that's been consuming a lot of what I've been doing, working with partners last year and into this year, 2021, is really helping them understand how to sell remotely and virtually, selling virtually and doing QBRs virtually, right? And you would think, wow, that's exactly what the technicians and engineers want, because they don't want to go talk to people live and all that. But it's still a little bit of a challenge adopting trying to grow these new competencies when we're used to having that human interaction. I think that's a big missing piece here, and also leveraging virtual platforms to not only maintain connection with our clients and strategic business partners, but actually increasing that. So my guidance has been, look, touch your clients more, have more virtual meetings, teach them how to use these virtual platforms. Don't make it awkward, right? Make sure if you're doing virtual meetings and doing virtual sales meetings and virtual QBRs, your platform like the back of your hand. Don't act like it's the first time you're using Microsoft Teams or Zoom and trying to do something, right? Have it down pat, and let your clients know that it's okay to use these platforms, and teach them the value and benefit of it. And I think by doing that, not only does your organization become stronger and more nimble and adapt much more quickly to changing, anything that changes the business climate. But I think, I go back to that, that kind of saying in my mind that, luck is where opportunity meets preparation, right? So the better prepared MSPs have weathered this more effectively. The better prepared business owners have weathered this more effectively. We'll probably be on the other side of it here in a few months. But, I think the lasting impression of what we've gone through will help, I think, increase that that sense of, hey, it's okay to do more things virtually, right? So I'm kind of curious what you all think. Do you think that, I think that now maybe we'll never get away from like in-person sales meetings and in-person QBRs, but I'm wondering how many of those now become okay to have virtually versus how many we have in person. Like, say we have the first sales meeting, or the second one, but then we may, do one virtually in between, saving us some of that. Or we'll do, maybe a big QBR, in person, and maybe we'll do a couple remote virtually, things like that. So I see that paradigm shifting, and I'm wondering, how much that you think will impact what MSPs are doing and what clients will deem acceptable moving forward.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting to see as we move forward. Unfortunately, we are starting to run out of time. I wanted to throw one news story that I picked out that I think is going to also be very impactful and very huge, and affect everyone in the industry, especially as we move forward. And that is the rise of government regulation, because there was some states that passed some regulation laws to basically regulate MSPs and put standards in place around how they operate. And I think that is going to be something that is going to be big and affect us all going forward as more and more states start to put in place frameworks for MSPs to operate in. Mike, you're the compliance guy. I'm going to turn it to you to comment on that. Do you see that being a big thing this year?
Well, to be honest, Matt, I'm not sure how big a thing it's going to be this year with everything else going on and people being distracted and state governments being pressed for financial, with a lot of financial pressures because of COVID and the lack of tax collections and things like that. But, it's a regulatory environment. We all know that we have clients who have to comply with HIPAA, and they made big changes to the defense industry with CMMC, and there was an interim rule that went into effect at the end of November requiring defense contractors to do things. So there's always been a flow down of compliance requirements to MSPs. The whole licensing thing is based, again, on that whole trust issue. And it's going to be a challenge. Now, in some industries, regulation's good. Barbers like to be licensed because it keeps people from being competitors to them that haven't met a high bar. So in a way, it's kind of ironic that my barber has to be licensed, but the guy that protects my data doesn't. So I think we're going to see this, but I think we're going to see more lawsuits and more regulation coming down because of the SolarWinds attack and the FireEye attack. And a lot of that will flow down to MSPs. But again, it's just an issue that relates to how big the adversary is. And really, how can you hold an MSP accountable for what they're doing when they're simply using tools that are provided by others, and those tools may not be secure? That's the one thing that really scares me, is having an MSP getting dragged into something that really isn't their fault. Now, the flip side of that is I've seen MSPs that weren't doing what they said that they should be doing, not installing antivirus, not getting those patches and updates done. And you know what? Maybe they deserve to be regulated or maybe drummed out of the industry if they don't meet the requirements. So, throw that ball in the air and see who wants to grab it.
Security's overrated. You don't need any of that stuff.
Can I add something on that?
I think Mike would agree that I think the trend that we're going at is more and more MSPs are going to have to be, like SOC 2 certified, that where you've got somebody coming in auditing the controls that you've got in place, and you can provide evidence that you're actually doing the things that you say you're doing. We're already seeing, if you're in financial services, if you're CMMC, you can't engage with someone at an MSP or even a managed security level if you can't show them that you've got those organizational controls in place. And I think that's just going to expand. So in a way, it'll sort of self-regulate a little bit. I know MSPs would love to be like attorneys. Well, let's make rules for everybody else, but we're not going to make any for ourselves. Michael attests to this, right? Like if a doctor emails your records like he's broken about 12 laws, but if your attorney emails the same thing, it's like, well, the Bar Association recommended that you not do that. And MSPs are like the same way, right? Like, we love regulations for everybody else, but regulating ourselves becomes a sticky scenario. But there's a lot more of that coming down the pipe. The other thing is that 2020 saw some relaxation of some of the compliance in order for organizations to continue to do business. But at the same time, a lot of them were beefing up. A lot of things like CMMC almost got fast tracked through. And I think we're going to see a snapback to very quickly catch up to where we should have been in spite of the 2020 slowdowns.
Well, it's good stuff. So I got to interrupt you there because unfortunately we are out of time for this segment, and I want to give a big thank you to all of our.
On this segment should be the only people you have on.
Rory, I'm not surprised you're the one who got in the last word. I'm just going to say that. But I want to thank all of you guys for being a part of the show with us this year and being a co-host with us. And hopefully we'll see you as co-hosts again in 2020. We would love to have you all back. So big thanks to Eric Long, Eric Simpson, Michael Goldstein, Rory Sanchez, Chad Kemp, and Mike Summel. We will see you all soon. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to have our next segment lined up. Rich, what are we going to talk about?
Well, we looked at the year that was. Maybe we need to think ahead to the year that's coming.
And what fun will that be in a new year? Let's move on to that. Thank you all. We'll see you all soon.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. In this segment, we have another star-studded lineup of guests joining us, former guest hosts on the show, where we are going to be talking about what, Rich? What are we going to be talking about?
We're going to get two thoughts from each of our guests in this segment here. We're going to get a memory of some kind that sticks in your head from 2020, but then we're also going to get a prediction for 2021.
And I just encourage those that memory can be as embarrassing as you want it to be. And the more embarrassing, the better. Everyone's looking at me like, what? No. So who do we have on here? Well, let's start with who we just saw on camera there for a brief second. Please welcome former guest host, Raeanne Buchianoko. Welcome, Raeanne.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I love the hat.
Thank you. Thank you. For those that don't, for those that don't know me, I'm Raeanne Buchianoko, owner of ABC Solutions in Clearwater, Florida. We are an accounting firm that specializes in working with MSPs throughout the U.S. and Canada.
Awesome. Well, glad that you are here and we're able to find time to come on to this special edition. Next up, joining us is Robert Bolas. Robert, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Rob Bowles, founder and president of Blockworks. We are a master managed security service provider, and we are channel only. So good to be back.
And I do that every time I see your name. I always want to say Bolas, and I remember it's Bowles. And but you know what?
Twist,
no,
right?
everyone expects that from me anyway. That's just how it goes. Also joining us, returning, is the one, the only, the man with one of the most awesome beards I've ever seen, Ronnie Parisella. Welcome, Ronnie.
Hello, everybody. Big Ronnie here. Happy almost 2020. It's so nice to see you guys again. For those of you who don't know me, I run a company called MSP Foundry, where we are MSP consultants to come in and kick you in the right areas and help where you need it. I've got 25 years in MSP myself, and it's a lot of fun seeing everybody's businesses. Thanks for having me back, guys.
It's definitely great to have you here. Now, I have to ask you a question before we introduce our next guest. What is the maintenance on such a mystical, magical beard like that? What do you have to do to take care of it?
Honestly, just brush. Knots are your enemy. Outside of that, make sure you wipe up after you eat. That's about it.
And there's no like products, like you have to shampoo it?
I have a sponsor. Thank you for the plug. Big Ronnie is sponsored by Royal Beard Club, at Royal Beard Club on Instagram. Check out their products. I love their beard oils. I carry their comb with me. Lots of good stuff.
I love it. Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much for coming on and joining us in this special edition episode. Next, we will go to another awesome guest host we've had on. Wonderful man, Corey Kurkandal. Welcome, Corey.
Hey, guys. Thanks for being here. Hey, Ronnie, I'm working on my beard. Give me about another 6-10 years. I'll be right there with you. My stuff just doesn't grow like that. Hey, welcome. My name is Corey Kurkandal. I'm an MSP out of Plano, Texas, founder and CEO of 5K Technical Services. Glad to be here with you guys.
Glad to have you on. Thank you so much for being on with us again and joining us for this kind of end of the year wrap up to 2020, which I'm sure we're all glad is over. We got one more person to introduce. Glad he's back. He's been on the show several times. We always love it when he's on. We always have a great time. Please welcome the one and only Dave Sobel. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me, Matt. So I am the former MSP, former multiple-time channel, now rabble-rouser and podcaster, host of Business of Tech podcast, the daily 5-minute news and analysis show. So glad to be back to throw action.
We always love it when you're on. I think now, Rich, I might be wrong on this. I believe Dave has been on the show more than anybody else.
Ooh, I don't know. I've never added that up, but it would not surprise me.
I believe he.
Well, add controversy. That's always the point, right? So
yeah,
it would be a tough battle between him and Dave Seibert, because Seibert's been on several times too. But I know Dave has been on 4 times.
This is number 3 for me.
This is number 3 for you. That's awesome. And number 3 will not be the last time, Ronnie. I promise you that. Of course, I always love it when all of you are on. So, Rich, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of kick things off.
Okay, and this was my stupid idea, so I'll just go first real quick, and then we'll get to the guest. So I said I wanted one sort of memory from 2020, and I was trying to come up with some sort of embarrassing Zoom moment where either I or somebody else exposed something that couldn't come up with anything. The memory that I will. One of the memories that I'll take away from 2020 was the experience that I had on numerous occasions of being in the middle of like a really important interview. Like I've got some executive on the line and the internet goes down because my internet connection is great when it's up, but it just disappears for 5 minutes at a time. And that high stress sort of scramble where I go for my phone and I try to reconnect on Zoom through the phone and I hope that the person I'm interviewing hasn't hung up. And that sort of came to mind as a vivid memory from 2020. And then the prediction for 2021, and I won't dive into details. I'm more interested to hear what the guests are thinking about, but I think 2021, and in fact, Dave and I were just talking about this days ago, I think 2021 is going to be the year of cloud management. I think that's going to be the year that MSPs start really kind of focusing in, how do I manage all this software as a service, infrastructure as a service stuff? And I think there are going to be a ton of new products from, in a lot of cases, new vendors that are designed specifically for that problem, because a lot of the tools that are out there right now aren't getting the job done. But that's me. I mentioned your name, Dave Sobel. Let's just go to you first. Give us a memory and a prediction.
Sure. Well, the memories are getting hard because I've spent my days in the same four walls. And so every day is like exactly like the other days. So they're really difficult to pull out one. In that vein, I'll give the comedic of it. I will distinctly remember I do another podcast with Ryan Morris and Carl Palachuk, and I remember we got on, we were going, we did our whole thing out to the end and realized no one had hit record. The entire brilliance of the Lost podcast. We had done an entire episode that we had to do because we just forgot to hit record. It happens to everybody.
Been there, done that, Dave. Now, in the case of this show, it was just like a 30-40 minute interview. So I don't think we've ever neglected to record the entire episode, but we did this interview segment with Lisa Shore. I remember and it was phenomenal, right? It's like it just so interesting, so great. And when it was done, we realized hadn't recorded it.
Yep. Oops. So I've done a prediction series on the podcast. I'm going to let you guys pick one I'm going to talk about here. You can either have a RMM MSP space one, or you can have security space one. Which would you like?
Let's go to our guest panel here. Show of hands, who wants security? That's you know what, security I think is going to be the winner.
Security wins.
Go for it.
Security is. All right, so my big bold prediction for 2021, I will be reporting sometime next year on the podcast of an MSP who is accused of criminal negligence. Bonus will be that they are in orange jumpsuit by the end. I'm telling this is ridiculousness what's going on in the security right now. And we're a little bit from a very large hack incident at the time of the podcast that should have everybody terrified of the opponent on the other side. But what I'm more looking at is some of the reactions and the way the community MSPs are responding to this. Somebody's going down for criminal negligence in 2021. And the reason is because if you just, I mean, it's the lack of motion toward truly responding to the security crisis and embracing zero trust access and moving towards a real methodology of properly implementing. Some customers going to wise up and say, no, you are responsible for this, and I'm coming at you for criminal charges. So I think this is the if you're not already concerned about what's going on from a regulation perspective, the criminal adversaries on the other side, it's a matter of time, and I'm predicting I'm going to make that call next year.
Okay, very interesting wake up call, folks. Raeanne, your turn. Give us a memory from last year and a prediction for this year.
Okay, so first of all, both of your memories, I've actually lived through in 2020 myself. So I'm going to stay away from that one. But there was this one. Okay, so we did this the masked MSP consultant thing with ChannelPro a little while back, and I was the duck. And so I had this whole thing all written out, and man, I had the best answers and everything. So here's what happened, right? just before we went live, the mask fell down. I couldn't see any of my notes, and so I'm like, oh no, what did I write? What was I supposed to say? I like totally quacked out, right? So so anyway, rightfully so. I was the first one voted off the island, and I learned exactly what not to do in future episodes wearing a big heavy mask. So that was a lot of fun. But that's one that is going down in the books for me.
Wardrobe malfunctions. It's the problem every time.
So prediction. Okay, so I think that Dave is onto something with the cyber or the cybersecurity issues. So what I truly believe that 2021 is going to be the year that not only MSPs finally take security seriously because they're seeing, all of their colleagues, get handed, mass, ransomware attacks, right? But I think it's also probably going to be the year that an MSP will finally figure out how to convince their customers that this stuff is real and a threat, because the customer can go out and blame the MSP all they want, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, if the customer doesn't want to buy that security, the customer is not going to get that security. And hopefully 2021 is the year that MSPs walk away from people who want to cheap out, and not take their business serious.
Yeah, well, and it's a point that dovetails with Dave's prediction too, right? Because the consequences of sticking with a customer who isn't doing, what they should be doing, but is going to blame you when something goes wrong, could get dicey.
And it happens, and they do get blamed. And and I can't tell you how many MSPs lost, good customers because they didn't want to take the proper precautions. They got a hit with ransomware, and they blame the MSP, and now MSP's out of that $100,000 worth of recurring revenue. So it's a problem, and it needs to be addressed, and this is the year for it.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's stay with the security. Although, Rob, you can talk about anything you want. I'm just predicting there might be a security prediction coming along here. But yeah, give us a memory from last year and a prediction for 2021.
Hang on, Ronnie. Rich, you did not say that we have to predict what the predictions are going to be, because that changes the dynamic of this entire segment.
Taking it up another level.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
2020 in hindsight, right? So, not a channel event, but somewhat relevant. January of 2020, my wife and I were, we live here in San Francisco. We're sitting in a restaurant, finishing up, paying a check, and I hear this car race down the street, and you can hear it loud. And this is out in the avenue, so they're smaller. It's not like the bigger streets downtown, but you hear it go by and you just think like, oh, there's just another clown speeding on a tight residential street, and don't really think much of it. And then as we come out and we're walking to where we're parked, this car is literally upside down on its roof in the middle of the street on the Muni tracks, blocking Muni trains both ways, all kinds of commotion. Nothing else is damaged, but somehow this car is upside down. And, as I'm thinking about it right now, what a perfect reflection of what 2020 ended up being, just a completely upside down year, right? So just random. But we talked about the security stuff, and we live it over here. I really believe in 2021 there will be consequences. I think that as an industry we've been able to, in a lot of ways, this is a good thing. People can start a business, right? They can take the risk, they can be ambitious. But I think that time of just being able to throw a shingle up and saying, hey, I'm in business, I'm an IT guy, I really think that or gal, I think that's going to be over. There's going to be accountability. I think that the compliance and oversight is going to be such that if you can't demonstrate that you actually can deliver these services within a structure that provides reasonable or even a better level of protection to clients, I just can't see it going beyond that anymore. And to Raeanne's point, and I've talked about this at a lot of the presentations, as soon as the MSP allows the client to say, oh, that's a lot of money, can we just take away this one piece, right? That responsibility moves from the client to the service provider. And so I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. We're already seeing it in Louisiana, but I really get a sense that if you can't check the boxes and demonstrate that you're doing it with a certain level of expertise and qualification, that we're going to run out of seats. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned Louisiana. We in the previous segment of the show, regulations and managed government regulations came up. Louisiana is the place that has pioneered that. Essentially, it will not be the last state to have a law on the books that imposes some requirements on MSPs, and we're talking about all the reasons why those laws are one already exists, and there are more coming along. Corey, give us a memory from last year and a prediction for the new one.
Yeah, for sure. For me, man, I look at 2020 has been the worst. Drama, action film, horror, pandemic, you name it. We couldn't have wrote it better than this, right? I'm just waiting for it to be over and see the credits flow because it has been really crazy. And just sitting here, I got teenage kids at the house, man. We have Zoom for them, Zoom for my wife, Zoom for me. And just so I didn't let the dog left out, I just throw up a little fake Zoom for him so he can don't feel left out as well. So I'm zoomed out. I'm zoomed out, go to meeting out, Teams out, you name it. I'm pretty toast on that. And I think, to follow in what we see on the 2021 side, I think it's definitely going to be the year of the MSP, but I also think it's going to be the year of the true MSP, those who get their ducks in a row and in order, that are truly providing the services to be able to protect and move their customers. I think those who are not will probably fall by the wayside and go away.
It's really interesting. The cover story for our January issue, every year, it's our sort of year ahead kind of preview story. And I was talking with Paul Dipple from Service Leadership about that. And for folks who don't know, he has the world's greatest database of information from MSPs that he uses to benchmark people against each other. And he was talking, like in aggregate, 2020 was actually a pretty good year for MSPs, a surprisingly good year given what happened in the economy. But he said that the gap, the delta between the top quartile and the bottom quartile was enormous, because the people in that top quartile had a phenomenal year, and the people in the bottom quartile actually, the numbers were negative. And so when you talk about this maybe being the year of the true MSP, that comes to mind, that there is a difference between being an MSP and being one who, as you said, has all the ducks lined up. And I agree, actually. I think those folks are going to continue doing really, really well. And other folks are going to have to kind of, clean up the act a little bit to keep up as we move forward.
And just to comment on Dave, I don't look good in orange, so I tend to stay away from that.
I'm not saying I'm trying to dirty up. I'm just watching for the first. I'm just saying the first one is I'm bored on.
Hey, it don't look good with my eyes, man. I don't have an outfit for that.
Orange jumpsuit, man.
They provide the outfit for you, Corey.
That's true, but I don't want it.
Reduce senses.
Ronnie, last word is going to go to you on this panel here. Give us a memory from 2020 and a prediction for 2021.
Well, for those of you who haven't worked with me before, I like to keep things light. I like to keep laughing. If you're laughing and I'm laughing, we're having fun, we're connecting, we like each other more, we're going to do more business. I swear that's the way it goes. So I like breaking chops on Zoom calls. I like telling, we've all been told, hey, you're on mute, you're on mute. I like telling people they're on mute when they're not. And then watching them mute themselves, and then blah 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 blah, and then I get to get some stuff done for a second, and then I laugh at them. But I had a situation where that was turned on me, and I didn't realize it, and I just muted myself and talked and talked and talked. I didn't even look up. I was talking about something. I look up, and the conference room is laughing at me. And it was a nice little reality check. Hey, stay focused. Make sure you're not pressing the wrong buttons, and don't cry wolf anymore, you big dummy. Now, for a prediction for next year, I'm going to get a little existential with you guys. I want you to stay with me. Disney's announcement recently for all of their new stuff that was going to be pushed through Disney Plus, Warner Brothers making their announcement that they're not in theaters anymore, that all of their new titles were going to go HBO Max. I think this is the first touch we've felt of net neutrality. I think that bill going away and widening the gaps and herding customers into certain areas for certain media, not just access to the platforms where the media resides. I think we're going to start seeing, well, Verizon is fastest with Disney Plus and Comcast is fastest with Netflix. And I think it's actually going to be true. I think we're going to, in 2021, we're going to see the larger companies be a little bit smarter with squeezing people with their monthly bills where they're definitely going to pay them anyway. And who cares if I'm a Disney person at home and I got 5 kids, I'll switch ISPs to get a faster connection for my kids. Absolutely. So I think we're going to see some funny stuff in 2021. I think companies are going to be slightly less scrupulous with the way that they go about it, and it's going to be laughable.
Ooh, Ron, to put your money where your mouth is, because I think you're dead wrong.
Ooh, a fight.
No, bet. We got a year now. Winner buys the brew, because I think you're dead wrong. I think the Biden administration is going to move on reestablishing net neutrality and cut that off at the pass.
I think, let me just take that one on. I believe that the Biden administration will have far too many real, pressing, important matters to do and undo. I think the straight business ones, which this is white people fighting white people, I really don't think it's going to rank very highly on the list.
So I'm throwing it out there, man. Actual handshake. I think you're wrong.
A case of your favorite beer. I'm a cider guy. 1 year from now, and Matt and Rich are the judges.
Totally sold, because I think you're wrong. Well, this will keep things interesting. Yeah, virtual handshake.
All right,
I want to be on that call.
Yeah, schedule them back sometime in December of 2021. We will all reconvene, and we will see if some of these predictions came true, and we will judge then and make them pay up whoever was right and wrong.
Good idea.
I like it. All right, so I believe that there's only one person who does not share a memory or a prediction, and that is me. Thanks for skipping me, Rich. Dare you?
Best for last.
Best for last. So I will do a memory. This was a crazy year. And as everybody knows, I like to say I do a lot of things here at ChannelPro. Sometimes I end up doing things I've never done before, which is kind of fun. And my memory that I want to share is a happy memory. And that was, Rich, when we concluded our first online event. So I remember that when the pandemic started, we were kind of forced to cancel our in-person shows, and it kind of got thrown to me to kind of like come up with how we're going to do an online event. And it was some of that stuff was stuff I'd never done before, but when it was over, it went really well. Like, I think we put together a great online event, and a lot of you have been a part of those and have kind of seen the results of those. And I think from what we do from a production standpoint and from a stage standpoint, it was pretty awesome. And thrown together, it was a lot of work to throw all that together, as Rich would remembers.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was, I mean, especially for you, but actually for everybody on the team, that was a crazy month, basically, where we had to completely pivot and turn something that was going to be face-to-face into an online event. Yeah, it was exciting.
It was exciting, very scary, but what we put together was really good quality. Very well received. I mean, we all know that, online events are not as good as in-person events, but the way we did the content, it was very professional and very good, and everybody was a big fan. So I was pretty happy about that. So that's my memory that I wanted to share, that our online events. The prediction that I'm going to make, I'm going to go deep on this one. My prediction is that by the end of 2021, Baby Yoda will appear on every product and piece of merchandise that you buy.
You mean Grogu?
Well, yes, Grogu, for those who have seen some of the latest episodes, Baby Grogu. But that little creature is the cutest thing ever, and it will be on every piece of merchandise. Cereal, it will be on spaghetti boxes, every canned good, beard oil. Ronnie, it's going to be on your beard oil, and we will all eat it up.
I might lose my sponsorship. Is that what you're telling me?
They'll have like a new version. It'll be the Baby Yoda beard oil. They'll still sponsor you, but like you'll want Baby Yoda on your package. Is that a real prediction? That's not really a real prediction, I suppose. Rich, I also predict great things for Channel Pro in the year ahead, in 2021, and great things for Channel Pro Weekly. I think 2021 is going to be a breakout year. I think we're going to grow a lot. And there's going to be things like new websites and new web experiences for our listeners and for our Channel Pro readers. So I can make that prediction that there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff coming from Channel Pro in the year ahead.
That is guaranteed.
Guaranteed. And I might be able to also predict, I'm going for a trifecta of predictions. I predict that at least one of these people, if not all of them, will appear in an episode of the Channel Pro Weekly podcast sometime in 2021.
That's guaranteed too.
Really swinging for the fences there, Matt.
Hey, you know what? I'm not making any crazy bets here that I'm going to have to pay up on. So I want to thank all of you for coming on and joining us, and for being a guest host in the year of 2020, and for coming on in this special edition episode and recapping the year and sharing your predictions. So a big thank you to Dave Sobel, Raeanne Buchianoko, Robert Bowles, Ronnie Parisella, Corey Kurkandal. Thank you so much for being on.
Awesome.
Hi, guys.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New Year. All right, so we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to dive into our third segment, which, Rich, remind me what our third segment is.
We are going to pay a visit to the Channel Pro Book Club.
That's right. Managing editor Colleen Fry is going to be on, and she's going to lead a discussion in the Channel Pro Book Club. And we're going to get some great book predictions for things to read in the year ahead. You won't want to miss that. We will be right back. And welcome back to our third segment here in this special New Year's Day edition, end of the year recap of Channel Pro Weekly, where we're bringing back a lot of our former guest hosts to come back and talk about various things, including books. So as we all know, our managing editor, Colleen Fry, has a regular recurring piece where we do book picks, and we find great resources to read. And that's kind of what this segment is going to be devoted to. And I'll have her introduce that in a minute. So let me first introduce those who are here, and bringing on that managing editor herself, Colleen Fry. Welcome, Colleen.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. And I did an awful job there kind of setting up this segment. So I will turn it over to you to actually talk about that. But I do want to give a warm welcome to our panel of guests who are going to be talking with us in this segment. First up, former guest host Bruce Mcculley is here. Bruce, welcome.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back and joining us on this special edition, and a happy new year to you. If you can do a real brief summary of who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Bruce Mccully. I grew an MSP to 8.5 million, and I sold it last year. So last January, before all this COVID and crazy 2020 jumped in, and I started a new company focused on helping MSPs like you guys secure yourselves.
You know what? That sounds like something you should put on a T-shirt. Like, I sold my company for $8.5 million, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt and $8.5 million.
Well, so what you're missing is that I grew it to $8.5 million. There's this little thing called a multiple. You'll learn about it someday when you grow up.
Well, I was just going with the numbers you said, but thanks for making sure that my joke fell flat. Really appreciate it. Glad to have you on. Moving on, please welcome former guest host Josh Weiss. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I run a company called LA Creative Technologies, MSP out of Los Angeles, serving creative, vertical, and nonprofits. I actually just wrote to you, Bruce, last night as well.
It's a small industry. Everybody knows everybody, don't they?
Yep.
And someone who we all know and love is here with us, former guest host and frequent ChannelPro event speaker, Luis Alvarez. Welcome, Luis.
Hey, Matt. How are you guys doing?
It's great to have you back. Thanks for being here. Doing well. Happy New Year. Tell us, a lot of people know who you are, but for those who may not, because they've been living under a rock for the last decade, tell us who you are and what you do.
So I run a company called Alvarez Technology Group located in the central coast of beautiful California, actually Salinas, California, and do a lot of work around the traditional MSP space, but IoT is an area that we have a growing practice on. And most recently, our managed security services have taken off quite dramatically. And if it were any other year, last night, I wouldn't be here today because last night I would have been at our annual costume ball that we do every New Year's Eve. And I would have been like way not in shape to do anything today. So, but no, I'm here instead.
And we are very glad that you are here. You know who else we're glad is here? A man who's a frequent guest at a lot of our ChannelPro events as well. Been on the podcast with us several times. One of the smartest technological men in the industry that I would say, like, if there's any guy who knows his beep, it's this guy, Joshua Liberman. Welcome, Josh.
I was afraid you were going to say that was me. Hi, Matt. I have to speak very carefully and precisely from here forward. So Net Sciences, Albuquerque, New Mexico. 31 years in Paradise or in the IT industry. And I'm just glad to be here. I probably didn't party like most of you guys last night, but I'm still very happy that somehow 2020 has passed and left me behind. So now we have 2021 to tackle. And I have a book to talk about when we get there. It's not really a business book, but something that all of us should know about. Anyway, and I promise it won't be too surprising. So anyway, nice to be here. Appreciate the intro, and I'll be hanging in.
Awesome. Well, we'll get back to you and that book pick here very shortly. Also joining us, the man from the great northern area above the United States that we call Canada, Mr. Scott Beck. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks a lot, Matt, for having me here, being the token Canadian of the group. And aren't we glad that we made it to 2021? I have an MSP here in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. We're security focused, and I've been blessed to be making the rounds on TV and book tours and movie tours and all that good stuff. So thanks a lot for having me, and looking forward to talking books with Colleen and this great panel.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you were able to find time to join us today, because I know you are a man in demand. So appreciate that. And finally, and last but not least, we're not saving the best for last, or maybe we are. Only I know. Please welcome Vince Tenorello. Welcome, Vince.
Hey, Matt. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year to you. For those who may have missed the episode you were on, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
All right. Yeah, I'm Vince Tenorello, and I run an MSP in Denver, Colorado. Been pretty active in the community, and yeah, enjoy. I've participated in a handful of events, so thanks for having me on.
Well, glad to have you here, and it seems like a lot of work to climb up to the top of that mountain that you're on.
It was
in order to do this, but the view was worth it.
It was a long and arduous ascent, but yeah, the view, that's near Aspen, Colorado. That's Capitol Peak. So
awesome stuff. Well, that's
one
great.
of my favorites.
Well, glad to have everybody here back on ChannelPro Weekly to talk books. Colleen, I did mention that we were going to talk about some books. Why don't you tell people a little bit about you and about how this kind of book thing got started, and then we'll kind of get into everybody's picks.
All right, will do. So hello, everyone. So I'm the managing editor of ChannelPro. And ChannelPro has been covering books for quite some time, but a few years ago, we started the ChannelPro Book Club because I love to read and I love to talk about books. So I thought we should do that more often. And I found out that I really like to talk about books with our audience members and IT business owners. And so I've had a lot of great conversations about books that you guys have recommended, that other folks could learn from, whether that's about relaxation or work-life balance or leadership skills or business development. Any topic is fair game. And I've talked with, I think, almost all of you about books before. And so we're going to do so again. We're starting off the new year right with my favorite topic of books. And so I'm going to start with our token Canadian. So Scott, welcome. I'm going to ask you to share one book that you would recommend to your peers that has helped you in any of the ways I just listed. And then I want you to tell me briefly, why you recommend it and what you like about it.
No Try, Only Do. Andy Bailey. If you've heard of Scaling Up or Traction, Andy Bailey kind of takes those concepts for business development, how to build a team, how to run your company, and puts real world pieces around that. Plus, I think the title is really cool. As a Star Wars guy, No Try, Only Do kind of remind me of very much like Yoda. But if you've heard of those other books, I found Andy's take on it really brought it and made it easy for a non accounting type business, like non-business type person to go, oh, okay, that's what they were talking about in Traction. Oh, that's what they meant in Scaling Up. Andy just talked in nice plain English, and it made the book very easy to read, and I took a lot of value out of that.
Great. Can you give me a couple of highlights that you like from the book?
Oh, shall I open up and like start quoting out of it?
No, just from memory, Scott.
I really
we got to check with our lawyers for copyright purposes. Hang on, stand by.
Oh, I thought in Canada we didn't have to worry about that. Oh, sorry. Colleen, what I really liked about it is how he touches on different aspects of the business, like how to build a team, how you should be communicating with the team, what numbers you need to be focusing on from the financial aspect. So all the little different levers that business owners need to be paying attention to that we may or may not even realize we needed to know about it. You don't know what you don't know until you know. And I found Andy did a very good job of explaining that.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that, Scott. Next, I'm going to go to one of our high altitude guests, Vince Tinarello. And Vince, you and I have talked before, but we've never talked books. So I'm looking forward to hearing what your recommendation is and why.
Well, it's funny. I snickered when Rich invited me on this because I generally hate business books. And anyone who knows me right now that's listening or watching this is shaking their head and saying, of course he says that. I wouldn't expect anything otherwise. I typically hate them because they're Captain Obvious type things, right? Like, oh, thanks, I needed to read 500 pages to figure that out. And there's nothing typically revolutionary, but at the same time, it's often the obvious stuff that we need reminders of, right? And so I try to be very selective, and I've got two books, but I'm going to talk about them as one. They're by Leif Babin and Jocko Willenick, that are two Navy SEALs, retired Navy SEALs, Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership. And I say they're two that operate as one because while they're a sequel, they're kind of the same thing and they're all around the same concept. And I think, there's some key concepts in there that I think my leadership team realized our MSP, like we were failing with. Like simple, but not easy, right? This is a simple concept, but it's not easy to accomplish. And that's one of our key points. And then I think making sure our people understand the mission is huge. We understand the mission of what we're expecting, but they don't always. Or another term that they use is commander's intent, where maybe I can't spell everything out for you, but you understand the framework, the commander's intent, what the intended result is.
That's a great recommendation. Vince, do you have your leadership team read these books too?
Yes, we read both of those. We read the entire Traction library, and the one in front of me right now is The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey, which we kind of got from the whole Traction library as well. But it's interesting because all of these books related together. They're just a great library for a leadership team that is trying to get their act together, as we are.
Love it. You have your own book club.
We do.
What's the monkey's name?
What's the monkey's name? Well, every employee brings you a monkey, and
what
so
do you feed
your
it?
kids, everybody. I'm not a big 1 minute manager guy, but this book, the concept there is is really good. And it opened my eyes last night. I'm like, my kids give me monkeys all the time. They give me their problems to solve. And they're like, peace out, Dad. You know, I'll talk to you later. Let me know when you got it solved for me. So anyway, but these Navy SEAL books are top shelf, especially if you're running a team and struggling to get people to do what you want them to do.
Great, thanks. So next, I'm going to not stay at high altitude, but I am going to go to someone who I know flies, and that's Bruce Mccully. Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
Hey, great, Colleen. How are you doing today?
Good, and I know you and I have talked books before, and at one time you told me you're trying to read a book a month. Is that still true?
Still true, still true. And
Good on
I
you.
did that through the entire 2020. I have to admit, and I didn't. This is not my book recommendation, but somebody put it on my desk, and this is not my recommendation. I don't want to use mine up, but The Subtle Art of Not Giving a CK might be on the reading list if 2021 is anything like 2020.
Great. All right. So what is your recommendation, Bruce, and why?
So, I mean, bringing up mindset, right? I think that that's a critical aspect to success. And so the Subtle Art book, it's kind of funny, but I have an oldie but goodie today, and that's Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if you guys have read this from Napoleon Hill. I've got like the collector's edition here, and it's just, it's the granddaddy, it's the mother church of like getting in the right mindset for being successful, and that, success or failure are all psychological. And I always start the year with this book. In fact, I start it by doing the personal analysis. He has a self-assessment, and I just love it. It's Scott, you can even copy the quotes out of it because, it's so old that it's past its copyright. But anyways, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. And next, I'm going to go to Josh Weiss, who I know you're a big reader too, and we spoke to a while ago for one of your articles. So Josh, welcome. How are you?
Hey everyone, I'm good, and I'm going to flip the script a little bit because the last book that I finished, while being very much IT and cybersecurity related, is not a business book at all. It was written by Cory Doctorow, who writes for Boing Boing, one of my favorite tech blogs and sort of culture blogs, and as part of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. He wrote a novel called Attack Surface. It was just published, and it's really interesting because it's actually about a cybersecurity contractor in a sense, and it really wrestles with a lot of the ethical implications of the work that we're all involved in technology. I think it's a really good read for anybody who works in IT and cybersecurity because it is thoroughly and incredibly accurate. Everything that they're talking about is just like, you could be dealing with some of this stuff in your everyday at work. And I think it's a really interesting book for us to read as business owners, and even for our employees to read, just to really like get a good hit on the ethical implications, how we can be helpful in our jobs, how we can be harmful in our jobs. And it also is just like a real, as someone who's doing this work in my day job, like I really feel it. And it's a way to kind of like get some empathy for what we're involved in our jobs, even if it's a little more extreme with government contractors and government spying and, third world dictatorships and all that. The meat of the book is really, what it's like to work in cybersecurity these days. And so that's called Attack Surface by Cory Doctorow. And it was a really engaging read, really realistic, and really, really interesting way to look at the issues that come up in our lives working in tech and cybersecurity.
I love a good suspenseful novel. Do you have your staff read books too, Josh?
I have my staff read articles that I send them and more of that than necessarily reading the books that I read, but I really do share what I'm learning and sort of like bring them into what I'm learning in those ways.
Great. And now we have another Josh, another big reader. I'd like to bring up Joshua Liberman. And you and I have talked books before, Josh. I'm curious what you bring into the table today.
I turned off that virtual background so that this will work. This isn't what I would call a business book per se, but it's a book about giving TED Talks, or giving talks to be more precise. And it was probably the best book that I have found about how to communicate from a stage well. it's not just about the TED Talk format, although they certainly cover that greatly, but it's about using everything from the space that you work in, to the way that you gesture, to the way you interact with people, to voice and timbre, cadence and timing, and just about everything you can think about, including a really good section on whether you should actually memorize a talk, be completely off the cuff, or since we're in all IT, I'll say behave in a hybrid mode. And I really think that this one piece of writing was the best I've ever seen about speaking. It really was fantastic. And I gotta say, there's a tremendous irony to watching my cell phone light up with a phone call from Bruce Mcculley just now. So I'm gonna guess that's somebody working for Bruce. But anyway, the book is phenomenal. It is, if there's one book to read about speaking or even just communicating well, because to a certain extent, we're all performing when we try to influence people to pay attention to tech or IT security issues. And in a certain sense, we're always selling, even if all we're trying to do is get somebody to see things our way or agree with us. So that book is as broadly applicable to everything we do as any book, with the possible exception of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, still my favorite book of my entire life, which is really a book about reasoning more than anything else, which is something we're in significantly short supply of at the moment. So, and we often deal with that paucity of reasoning when we go out to people. We try to explain why security matters and why they can't make the argument that it doesn't apply to me. So that book underpins everything I've ever done since I was 16 and read it. But as far as recently, the TED Talks, not to mention the one I mentioned to you in our last discussion, which was between you and me, the Confessions of a Comic Queen. You've got to be a lover of editing and writing to want to embrace that book. Did you read it?
It's still on my nightstand, Josh. I haven't gotten there yet. But I just wanted to reiterate, in case people didn't hear the beginning, so the book you're recommending is called TED Talks, not TED Talks themselves, correct?
Correct. The book is actually called, let me see if it works with this background. Yeah, kind of. TED Talks.
TED Talks.
And, the official TED guide to public speaking, but it's not necessarily about TED or how they do it. Chris Anderson is the author. I believe it's only a year or two old, but it's a great and a fairly quick read and full of stuff. I mean, I don't underline or highlight books, but I did put little sticky tags that I could go back to, and it was well worth the effort.
But that kind of answers my own question then. I was going to ask paper or audio, so apparently you like paper.
I'm a paper guy. Yep.
All right. Well, thanks, Josh. And now I'm going to go to Luis Alvarez. Hey, Luis.
Hey there, Colleen. So, like my fellow business owners here, I read a lot, and I try to get in a book about a month, every month and a half. A lot of that I've been doing when, in the past, driving, listening to audiobooks, but not doing as much driving now. So it's a little bit more difficult to get that in. But recently I read a book, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, which is a really good book. It is somewhat related to business, but it really talks about how we tend to look at the world in a finite sense. Even when we talk about things, we talk about games, and we talk about things that have a definitive end. And in what we do as business owners, at least in our business, there is no end. There is no finite end. And so you have to kind of shift your thinking in terms of how you view the world, view your relationships with people you work with, your family, the world around you. And the book speaks to that to a great extent, and it reiterates some of these lessons about looking at the world as not a finite thing, but instead looking at it as something that will go on and on and on. And you have to shift your thinking, going beyond just the quarterly review or the annual review and all these other things that we put brakes on just because it's easier for us to comprehend it.
Mm-hmm. And Luis, do you have your staff read books that you recommend as well?
They hate it, but yeah, if they see a box coming from Amazon, they're like, oh no, what now? And even if I listen to a book, I always buy the paper book. So I'm actually a double dipper when it comes to the Amazon world, because I always like to go back and refer to things that I heard And it's much easier to do that when you have a book that you can go back to that particular chapter or that particular segment and share that with somebody. But then when I do it with our leadership team, as well as with our employees, if I think it's a book that they're going to benefit from.
Great, thank you so much. Anyone else have a book club at work or recommend books for their staff to read and discuss?
Colleen, I just want to say a big thank you. As we've been sitting here doing this section, I've just ordered in a bunch of books. So I got January, February, March, all taken care of. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, Scott, same thing. I've been like adding to my queue over on Audible.
That's perfect. And do our hosts, Matt and Rich, have any books that they want to recommend?
Ooh,
Rich, why
gosh.
don't you go ahead? I don't know if we have time to.
Yeah, you
for
caught me
both
by
of us, so.
surprise.
Oh, wait. This is the fun part for me, Colleen. Matt reads? When did that start?
It's funny you mentioned that though, because I generally consume books via audio form while I'm doing other things, and also like podcasts and stuff too. So I haven't actually had read a lot of or listened to a lot of business books recently. I'm doing a stint kind of in the fiction world right now, going back which I generally don't do a lot of fiction, but I've done a couple recently. So Rich, if you have a book in mind, I can give one of the ones that I just recently finished. Why don't you go ahead and go first?
You know what? I will mention this one here, partly because it was like right behind me and I could grab it very quickly, but also because I got this in January 2020 at one of the 4 conferences that I actually went to last year. And it was really good. And it's by somebody who I think a lot of folks maybe in the audience have heard of, and he was relatively new to me, but his name is Nigel Moore. The name of the book is Package Price Profit. I believe he has a newer book, if I'm not mistaken. There's another one by Nigel Moore that came out at some point during 2020. But he is a former MSP from Australia. He's a consultant. Now, really interesting guy who, like I said, I just sort of discovered last year. And this book I can recommend to anyone out there who is a managed service provider, because it's one of those books that has very practical, experienced advice about pricing, which, as we all know, is one of those nightmare topics. So that it's called Package Price Profit by Nigel Moore.
Excellent choice there. And I will give everybody a fiction pick. So if you want to take a break from business and dive into the world of science fiction, I've been going back and trying to listen to some classics, a few that I missed that I wanted to read or listen to, some that one I was listening to with a friend. So I will say one to check out is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Lewis is shaking his head there. Very interesting science fiction book. It kind of ended on a kind of a cliffhanger, and I'm really excited to dive into the remaining books in the series. So yeah, check that one out. I don't want to give too much away about it because it's a absolutely crazy book, kind of told from the perspective of several different passengers journeying to this one place on this what they call the tree ship. So good book, Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Check it out.
Great. And I'm going to end with one that I really like for inspiration. And I think it's particularly resonant in the midst of the pandemic. And it's called Mountains Beyond Mountains. And it's a story about Paul Farmer, who's the head of Partners in Health. And he's also a Boston guy, and he's been very involved in the vaccine development. And it was about how years ago when he was in med school, he also went to Haiti to try to find a cure for, common illness that was killing poor people, illness that was preventable. I've read it 3 times. I can't recommend it enough. It is very inspiring.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for coming on and leading our book club segment here in this 2021 edition of ChannelPro Weekly, the special episode. And so our homework for everyone, check out all of these books that we talked about. And hopefully by the time 2021 is over, you'll have gotten through them all. Big thanks to our guests for this segment: Scott Beck, Joshua Liberman, Louis Alvarez, Bruce Mcculley, Josh Weiss, and Vince Tinarello. Believe I got everybody. Thank you all so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll have you all on in 2021 as guest hosts on the ChannelPro Weekly podcast. Thank you much, everyone.
Take care, all. Happy New Year.
And with that, And with that, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to roll into part 4, our last segment on this special edition episode. We're going to be talking with several former guest hosts on museum and technology picks. So you will not want to miss that. Stick around. We will be right back. And welcome back to our next segment. Very excited to do this. For those who are longtime listeners and viewers of the ChannelPro Weekly podcast, know that we often, not necessarily every episode these days, but often do what we call a museum pick. Because I have a serious, well, Rich would attest, I have a serious hoarding problem that I need professional help for. But that means I have gadgets and computers and components and all kinds of stuff going back years and years and years. And we bring them on the show to talk about them and to reminisce about technology past, which is a lot of fun. And so we decided to invite back some of our awesome co-hosts and guest hosts from the year to have a special museum segment to talk about some of the cool old things that they might have, because a lot of times we talk about museum stuff that I have. So let's go around the room and meet everyone who's here. We will start with the top of my list. Our first returning guest host is Mr. Dave Seibert. Dave, tell us about you.
Awesome. Glad to be here again. Happy New Year to everybody. And I wear a couple hats in life, not to get too confusing. So Dave Seibert, I have a 25-year MSP named IT Innovators. And then a couple other hats because life is way too short. S&B Tech Fest Conference and voice of the channel recordings and also Pro Tier peer groups. So a little bit in life to keep me entertained and moving in our awesome industry.
Very cool. Well, glad you are here. Thank you so much for coming back. Next up is Mr. Ed Correa. Ed, welcome.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Glad to have you back. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm not an overachiever like Dave. So I've had a business, an IT business called Sagason Technologies. We turned 21 today. So pretty excited about that. And that's about it. I find that having a thriving business is enough dealing with everything we've been through.
Well, congratulations on that, 21 years, and a very, very happy 2021 to you as well. Next up, please welcome returning guest host, Lawrence Cruciano. Welcome, Lawrence.
And we made it. We got through 2020. How did that happen, right? It's amazing. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here, and Happy New Year to you.
And as our and another segment, our previous guest said, how do we get through it? Lots and lots and copious amounts of alcohol was how we did it. So so welcome back. Glad that you're here. Next up, please welcome Mike Bloomfield. Mike.
Hey, Happy New Year. Mike Bloomfield, President Geek of Techie Geek. We are a New York City-based managed service provider. Tomorrow, we are actually celebrating 8 years in business, so just a little under 25, but we'll get there. And glad to be back on the show.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you back. I don't know if it looks this way for everybody who's watching, but you seem a little out of sync. I don't know if everyone else noticed that. Was his lips in sync? Rich?
Looked okay to me.
Looked okay to you? Okay, maybe it was just on my end, but if it's on my end, that means that's how it's going to look in the recording.
That it was totally you.
So Mike, you're going to be like
Was it? Do you want? I just turned down to 720p from 1080. You want me to redo it?
No, we'll just press forward, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
You're a video guy. You'll just have to resync my audio. Come on.
Yeah. And do you think I'm going to go through that much work? Not a chance. Welcome.
Send it to me. I'll have my graphic designer do it.
Next up, please welcome returning guest Jeff Halash. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Good to be here. Happy New Year. We're going into 2021, which I hope is a much better year than 2020 has been. I am the owner of TechNut Computer Repair in Canton, Michigan, and also the host of MSP Unplugged and the conference coordinator / half owner of TechCon Unplugged. So those are the three things that I do. I also work a full-time job at Ford Motor Company. So I'm pretty busy as it is.
Wow, and I thought Dave Seibert was an overachiever. Holy cow, look at you. Well, welcome back. And I believe, was that everybody? Did we get to everybody, Rich? Yes, we did get to everybody. Awesome. All right, so I want to make sure that we get time to go through everybody. I do have a museum pick that I've been saving for this episode, and hopefully we'll have time to get to it at the end, but I want to get to all of you first. Why don't we go ahead and start with Ed? Ed, what is your museum pick that you've brought for us today?
Well, can you remind me of the question? I apologize. Is it a museum we like to go to, or a technology that we have collected over the years that we just refuse to let go of?
The one and the same on this show.
Okay, good. Well, I didn't bring it in with me, but it's still in the garage. I have several Winchester hard drives, the big platters.
Oh, wow.
I just can't part with those things. I mean, I learned technology on that. And then I've got another one. It's I think it's a 30 megabyte IBM hard drive. It's as big as a small suitcase and weighs about the same when it's full of everything. It has like no storage at all, but it was the first hard drive, I was able to plug into a computer and access. And my wife hates it. Why do we keep these things? Well, because they're sentimental to me. I learned on these things. They represent a key milestone in my life.
That is awesome. I've never gotten a chance to actually see one of those Winchester drives in person. But I remember, do you know why they were named the Winchester?
No, I don't.
So because
which is funny because I right now I'm very close to the Winchester Mystery House. So maybe you can let me in on this mystery.
Yeah, so they refer to it, as far as I know, is because it had 30 megabytes of fixed storage and 30 megabytes of removable storage. Therefore, it was like a 30-30 rifle. So they named it the Winchester. If that is true, that was how I remember it anyway. But very, very cool tech / museum pick. Awesome stuff. Let's go to Jeff. I know you have a variety of old and interesting things.
Well, it's funny, Matt, because I was thinking about that the other day when this question came across and you said, hey, let's do a museum pick. And unlike Matt and probably several others on here, I don't generally keep my old stuff. And shame on me, because there's some things that there's a handful of things I look back on and wish I would have kept. And I just got rid of this just probably 2 months ago because I was cleaning out the basement and I just got tired of it sitting around. So I want to talk about two things. And that's my very first, and it's very apropos to podcasting. My very first MP3 player was a Zune 80 gigabyte spinning hard drive MP3 player. And I loved the Zune. As soon as I grabbed it, turned it on, got my stuff downloaded through their software. It was a great MP3 device that I could put on my belt. And I was probably back in 2008 listening to 40 plus hours of podcasts a week and just loved it. Then shortly thereafter, I had probably a couple of years later, I had sold that and got the Zune HD 32 gigabyte, which was a SSD and, real fast and everything. It had the touch screen and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to tell you right now that, and a lot of people disagree with me, the Zune blew away the iPod every day of the week because it was so intuitive and just easy to use because they did everything linearly and just, it was a nice format, easy to find stuff, easy to play stuff. And I love those devices. Now we keep everything on basically a small little computer, our phone, and we can listen to podcasts in the car and all these different kind of things. But back then in 2008, 2010 time period, I used that thing all the time and it was constantly in my pocket or attached to my belt. And I love those devices and I probably should have kept them, but I did.
It's a great pick. And the Zune, there was a lot of nodding heads here when you were talking about how much better the Zune was. And, the fate of the Zune was very interesting as they rolled out Windows Phone 7 series. It essentially had a built-in Zune. That's kind of where that software ended up. And Windows Phone was I was a huge fan of Windows Phone. And it was one of the best mobile audio experiences that you could get on a device. Just awesome stuff. So great picks. Love it. Go ahead, Mike.
Can we jump in if we have a comment on it, or do you not want us to jump in?
you can jump on in right now.
I don't use it feel, but you like, I don't have it with me, but do you remember, like, that brings me back, the portable CD players that you had to have buffers on it, because if you were trying to work out and then it would skip and there was 10-second buffer, 30-second buffer. And now we have Spotify and Apple Music, and you don't have to worry about anything, and I can listen to anything anywhere. And that's why I love technology.
Absolutely. I've got two different portable CD players in my my actual museum. Rich, I'm not sure if I brought that one on. I might have in one episode, but when I was young, I had a job very young, and I saved my money, and I bought like this $200 Sony Discman that it was well ahead of its time. It had a long buffer, 2x play speed, so it could recover quickly, and it also had an optical output, which was very, very interesting at the time. But awesome stuff. So great commentary there. Mike, why don't we stay with you? Did you have a favorite museum kind of technology or a pick that you wanted to share?
Yeah. So like Jeff, I am into technology. I don't keep my old garbage. I throw it out. I always get new. So I did bring this old technology. It's called a pen. I don't think I even know how to use it anymore. But no. So being that we're in the tech, I brought new technology. So just built this recently. We have a GeForce 3090 for the Wing Edition, EVGA. We're tech companies. We shouldn't have museum stuff. We should have new stuff. You can't find tech in my house older than 6 months. I throw it out. And I wish I was doing this from my office, because the one thing I do collect is I do love collectibles, and my office is a museum. But here in New York, we're out again. So I have a few of them behind me. I have a Captain America September 11th edition. So he's holding kind of some of the rafters of the Twin Towers. I have a Grogu or Baby Yoda, as most life size, as well as a 1/4 scale figure of Han Solo from The Empire Strikes Back, which I see Jeff also has an Empire Strikes Back, and a lot of Star Wars stuff behind him as well.
I see a Borg behind you, don't I?
What's that?
Is that a Borg behind you with a green eye?
No, he had Jeff between me.
Behind you against the white wall.
No, that's a tree. That's my Star Wars tree.
Wishful thinking.
Is that a space robot bent on world domination? No, it's a tree.
Who's there? No, it's a little tree that we usually have in the office. It's a Star Wars tree. So, but that is now in my home office basement.
So I love the pick. I mean, we do a show about old stuff to reminisce on, and you bring a modern day $2,700 graphics card, but it's a great card. Now, did you just build that into a machine? What are you doing with that?
Yeah, I finally built that into a machine about a week and a half ago. So right before Christmas, I built that into a machine. Latest, like I said, latest technology. My old computer had a 5-year-old processor, and I was like, why do I have this? So I rebuilt a whole new gaming rig now that I'm working at home again.
And what are you playing right now?
Nothing. I have 2 kids. I play Hatchables, and I watch Blimpy on YouTube. So I don't really play anything. What I plan on playing is, I'd like to finish Half-Life Alyx on the Valve Index VR that I started playing in March. And then as well as Cyberpunk recently was released, and I hear really good things about that. And Star Wars Squadron I had pre-ordered, ambitiously, that I would play, and it just sits in my Steam library. But I just like to have technology. So I like to know that I have the power to play the game. I just don't have any time to play the game,
And you, of course, can play Pac-Man at 12 trillion frames per second, which is also really good with that. All right, let's move on. Lawrence, why don't we go to you?
Yeah, sure enough. It's been great to hear kind of all these different perspectives, because some of us keep old stuff, some of us don't. I actually had to kind of dive into the Wayback Machine, especially the significance of today. Here we are in 2021. So in '97, when I started this business, started on shoestring budget, no real resources, and it was a really big deal. After when we needed a server, right? There was more than like a couple of us hanging around a an old Windows box. So we actually have a conference room table that is full of all kind of old stuff. Some of it has significance, some of it's just old. So I pulled out the motherboard of the first server that we bought as a company. And this is an old 200 megahertz Pentium Pro. And it has a blistering 66 megahertz front side bus on it. And you know, kind of like that super high-end graphics card. And this thing is smoking because it has 512 gigs of RAM. Or sorry, 512 megs of RAM on it. Gigs, yeah. 512 megs of RAM on it. It is blistering fast. And that was a big deal when I started this business that we needed a server, and we were it was all kind of hot because we installed Windows NT 4, and Windows NT 4 was like the latest technology, and yeah, here we are in 2021, and you know, our servers have terabytes of RAM, and we're running hundreds of virtual machines per rack unit. Just what a crazy ride it's been.
And with all that RAM, and really you don't need any more than 640 kilobytes, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, you know, MS-DOS was still very much a thing. I think we all can remember, you know, MS-DOS.sys and what was this, config sys and autoexec.bat and editing all that stuff, right?
Oh God, yeah, that brings back nightmares, doesn't it?
I know, right? And making it with manual IRQ settings, and God forbid if like your card didn't have the right IRQ dip switches flipped or the pin set to your software. Those are good times right there. We should bring that back.
We should. Dave's like, no, like I remember how awful it was just trying to get a mouse to work in DOS, right? that was a.
I mean, hey, I mean, look at this thing, right? I mean, we have serial ports, we have parallel ports, we even have those new fang-dangled PS2 ports here. I mean. Yeah. This thing is modern. We did not have any of that old AT stuff. Only the best.
They actually had a DOS mouse driver for some of the original Windows 1 and Windows 2 products.
Wow.
Remember when?
I probably got a mouse driver for DOS on a floppy disk somewhere. You know what's funny though? You hold that up and you comment on the PS2 ports. They still sell motherboards today with PS2 support. You can still
buy a new mouse. Come on.
Yeah, the motherboard that I just got had a PS2 port. And people love it.
Yeah, it's crazy how that one is still supported to this day. We got a few minutes left. Hopefully we can get to mine because I've been saving this all year for this. Dave, what is your museum pick?
Sweet. Well, you know, first of all, Mike is the overachiever because I'm trying to get my hands on a GeForce 3060 graphics card. And those things are like, oh my gosh, gold bricks because short supply. So anyway, that's what I want for Christmas. Well, forget Christmas. That's what I want for my New Year's. So, you know, so Matt, I needed to pick something, and IT Innovators is 25 years old. So I had to tie it together. So I said, okay, 1995, what can I pull out from 1995? And I pulled out two things because they tie together. So the first one is this bad boy right here, which is a SGI Silicon Graphics 02. And if anybody knew, this thing like weighs more than I do. So this is a Silicon Graphics 02 with a MIPS R5000 processor that was in it. Oh my gosh, ultra wide SCSI is actually in this thing. It came with 64 meg of memory, and oh my gosh, still has everything in the back, including a PS2 adapter. And we can't forget about Cyril on the back of it. And its counterpart, by the way, $11,000 when it came out.
Wow, that's a cool piece.
That was a steal because the Onyx 2 or the Onyx right before it was about 120,000, and when they released this one, it dropped that to about 80,000, which everybody was excited. So 11,000 steal, and then of course you got to back it up. So you got to have a Tecmar DataVolt 4000 DAT tape SCSI backup system. Don't forget the Terminator. You got a Terminator.
Oh, must have that.
And of course, you got to sit here and play with the numbers so you get the right, SCSI ID, because we all know if you dupe SCSI IDs, it doesn't work. So, you got the O2, you got the DAT backup.
Hey, Dave, how much was
Yeah.
the backup unit at the time?
At the time, this guy was roughly $3,400 for this bad boy.
I bet that thing still works too.
It does actually. and I actually put the tape in it right beforehand just so you could see it versus everything looking the same color.
And how much
And-
data
and
could you
data-
store on a tape back
What's that?
then? How much data can you store on that tape?
So the one before this was a whopping 1.3 gig, and this one is 4 gig.
Why would you
Which
need
at
more?
the time was like, woohoo.
Yeah, at the time, I remember that at the time, seems like, why on earth would you ever need that much storage?
Exactly.
And now we have that much storage in little tiny chips.
And believe it or not, this O2, there's some of them on eBay with 31 people watching the auctions right now. Not this one, but other people's. 31 people are looking at those darn things.
Crazy. That's awesome stuff. What a great piece. Rich, what do you think? Do you think I got a couple extra minutes to go through mine, or should I save it for the first episode of the year?
If you can do it fast, let's do it. You've got me curious. You've been hanging on to this for a year.
Rich, I remember when I said that I was working on an experiment for a museum pick at one point. I don't know if you remember that or not, but this was my experiment. And this is actually one that I've talked about on the show before, and I'm bringing it back. And why am I bringing it back? Because at the time, I believe I talked about it on a show in 2017. I believe it was episode 36, if our notes are correct. And I was going to retire it. And then I'm like, I want to see how much longer it can remain useful. So Rich, you've been here and and I'm going to hold it up here. But in my kitchen for the last decade, at least, this thing has been running 24/7. And this is the HP TouchSmart IQ 500. So the date on this thing was 2008.
And will it actually fit underneath the cabinet in the kitchen?
Yeah, barely. Yeah, barely fit. And this thing has been a mainstay in my kitchen for years. It has been running almost 24/7 for 12 years. It's got a Intel Core 2 processor, 4 gigs of RAM. It was actually very up to date at the time it came out. It was one of the first and that wasn't the first touch-based computer. There was one prior to that, but it was one of the first, all-in-ones with a touch screen, like a touchscreen desktop. A 500 gig hard drive. And other than having to replace the hard drive once, this thing has been in operation for a very, very long time and remains useful. It went from Vista to 7 to 8 to Windows 10. And it just finally got retired. I lost the battle. I was really the only one who really used it. And I lost the battle to remove it from the kitchen so my wife could put like a new air fryer that she got for Christmas. So it's finally out of operation, but it was still useful. You could log in. Now it was slow. It could do one thing at a time. And if you go to like start a web browser, I mean, it was slow, but still functional, still ran everything, ran modern day websites slowly, but it was used a lot primarily to remote into a desktop upstairs that was much faster. So that was kind of how it remained useful. But it's amazing how some machines and some devices can remain functional and useful for a very, very long time. And that one, I could still plug it in right now and it would still work. It's just amazing how
Where's it going, Matt?
Probably in the garbage, I think, is where this one's going to go.
Well, you got great ROI out of that one.
No kidding, right? 24/7 operation for more than a decade is a pretty good life. Far greater than you would even expect out of a computer. So that was my my museum pick, the just recently, finally, fully retired HP TouchSmart IQ 500 PC. I want to thank all of you for coming on and joining us in this kind of museum pick segment to kind of talk about some technologies that we've used in the past or loved, or even our new technologies that Mr. Mike has that is going to bring him years of gaming bliss in the future. So thank you all to Lawrence Christiana, Ed Correa, Dave Seibert, Mike Bloomfield, Jeff Halash. Hopefully we'll see you all as guest hosts.
Happy New Year.
2021. Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year.
And so, Rich, we will take one more break and we'll pause, and then we'll come back and we'll close out the show. Thanks again for everyone. Folks, stick around for that. We'll be
Take care, guys. Oh, are we hanging around?
You guys are not hanging around. Our audience is going to stick around for the for the close of the show. So stick around for that. We'll be right back. Oh boy, well, that is going to be a wrap here for this special edition of ChannelPro Weekly. Wow, Rich, that was a lot of people.
That was so awesome. Actually, what a wonderful thing that we know all those people, we get all those people involved in the podcast, and to have them all make some time for us and participate in the wackiness and the conversation. What great stuff.
It is. You know, it's always fun to reflect back too, because you know, we talked at the very, very beginning of the show that it's been a very good year for the ChannelPro Weekly podcast. We've grown our listener base, and it's folks like that who also say they want to be involved because not because we know them or because whatever, but because they have a lot of fun. In fact, Rich, tell the story that we kind of tell that you told people, that like the most common response we get back from people who have been on the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens quite often is, you know, so as soon as the new episodes go up, I send an email to whoever the guest host was, and I said, hey, the episode is live now. Here's a link to it. Thanks so much for joining us. And quite often, let's just say, the response is, thanks, that was fun. Like those, you know, those 4 words, thanks, that was fun. Which is always nice to hear that in addition to, you know, sharing their insights and thoughts with people, they had fun doing it.
Yeah, we get that. We do get that a lot, that this is a fun, you know, we try to keep it light. We try to keep it informative and good, but we also try to keep it very, you know, as entertaining as possible and have a good time and not take it too seriously. And I think that resonates well, not only with our guests, but with our listeners and viewers as well. So, I'll wrap up 2020 with a couple other comments. I want to give a big thank you not only to our awesome guest hosts and people who have been on to do interviews, and I cannot thank them enough. They are a big part of what makes the show successful and great. But I also want to thank our listeners and our viewers directly. Rich and I, we pour our hearts into this, and we really try hard to make a great show for you guys and guys and gals each and every week. And we know it's a longer show, but it's designed, you know, our goal has always been to have something that you can kind of listen to or watch kind of in the background while you do other things and learn and laugh and have us be a part of your day. And thank you all for tuning in and listening and making 2020 a great year for us. And hopefully we'll be with you in 2021 week after week, bringing you the news and insights and great interviews and all the great stuff that we do. We, of course, always want to hear from our listeners and viewers. podcast@channelpronetwork.com is the email address. Any thoughts, send them our way. Make sure you give us your comments. We want to hear each and every one. So, Rich, I want to look forward to, we talked a little bit about predictions earlier on in the show, but I want to give people a little bit of a prediction of 2021 here at ChannelPro, particularly what we're doing for events and what we kind of have in store for them in the months to come. What can people expect from events from ChannelPro in 2021?
Lots and lots of really great events. Actually, we have a very full calendar of events. You're listening to this, you know, at the beginning of January, and our first event of 2021 is roughly a month away at this point. I'm not looking at the exact date, but it's right at the beginning of February, and that is going to be the first of 2 cybersecurity online summit events that we do this year. We've been doing those once a year in the past. We're going to do one at the beginning of the year and one towards the end of the year. We're going to have 2 instead of 1 as in the past of our cloud and managed services online summit events. We're going to introduce an entirely new event that is going to be 100% dedicated to business management and operations. So sales, marketing, service desk, hiring, retention, all that kind of stuff, just about running the business. We're going to dedicate an entire show specifically to that. And then, you know what, starting in May, we have a lineup of 6 what we are calling hybrid events. In years past, obviously, ChannelPro conferences have been out on the road, and we go to different cities in the country, and we bring an audience together into a hotel room and present content. We will start doing that again, fingers and toes crossed, in May. But understanding that, you know, there are still many things that are unpredictable about the world, and we don't know what to expect about, you know, distancing guidelines and capacity maximums and stuff like that. The 6 events that we do in various cities around the country this year will also be streamed online. So anybody here will be able to view. There will be no reason not to attend those events, even if for whatever reason you're not comfortable being there in person. So we got lots of events coming up in 2021. Go to events.channelpronetwork.com and you can actually see the whole calendar of what's coming up there. Now keep an eye on that, and please, folks, join us.
Yeah, and I believe you can also pre-register already too. So reserve your seat. Rich, it sounds so good to hear back in person for an event. You know, like there are a lot of work, the events, and you know, we used to kind of complain about them, but when they got ripped away from us, I think we kind of miss them. You know?
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get back, and you know, hosting them, attending them. That is a thing that I know will be coming back in 2021, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And what on the, from an editorial perspective, preview what some things that they might. I know the editorial calendar's done. Preview some things that they might be reading about in ChannelPro this coming year.
Oh gosh, well, I don't have the editorial calendar right in front of me. So you know, our January issue, which will show up on the website about 7 to 10 days from the time that you're listening to this, contains our annual, as I mentioned, I think before, our annual year ahead preview story. The cover story for February is going to be our annual State of the Channel report. That will be interesting this year because it's been a different year from years past, and so it'll be very interesting to get a read on what people said about 2020 and what they're anticipating for 2021. We've got our vendors on the Vanguard piece coming up for 2021. Always one of my favorites, where we kind of point you to vendors you would probably find interesting but may not know about. Yeah, I would have to go dig up the editorial calendar to go beyond that, but we a lot of or all of our favorite annual segments are going to be in there. The Reader's Choice Awards, the All-Star Awards, all that good stuff coming up this year.
I cannot wait, Rich. It's going to be a fantastic year. And everybody tune into the one place you can get it all. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Make sure you go there each and every day for all that great stuff that Rich was talking about. News, articles, white papers, downloads, and these top stories. We still do have the magazine that's mailed out quarterly in physical form that you can touch with your own hands. That's where a lot of those pieces will be. So make sure you grab that from your mailbox when it arrives. ChannelPro Weekly is the podcast. You can subscribe to us pretty much everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. For those who want to watch, hit the subscribe button and the bell. We're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher, and Rich verified moments ago, we are also in Audible and Amazon Music now, thank goodness. So I believe we are pretty much everywhere. Literally, podcasts are
awesome.
Awesome stuff. So subscribe to us there. Leave us a good rating and a comment if you please. Anything you do like that just helps us grow the show and keep doing it for you all every week. If you want to follow us on the social networks, we are at ChannelPro SMB on Twitter. We're Facebook or ChannelPro Network on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you want to follow me, I'm at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. Rich, what are you on the Twitters?
At Rich Free.
So follow him there and send us an email. podcast@channelpronetwork.com is the email address. And with that, we will wrap up this special 2020 end of the year edition. And it's all about 2021 going forward. Put that last year out of your mind as of this moment. It didn't happen. Forget about it and only look forward. That's what we're going to do. And we will see you all in our first 2021 regular episode of the year coming up soon. See you then.